Lieutenant Scott Brown. Mr. Brown, can you please state your name for the record?
Johnny Scott Brown.
Thank you. And look, I got to inform everybody my ignorance. I didn't realize that Johnny Brown and Scott Brown are two different people until very recently. And I was reading reports thinking that we had two people in state police named Scott and Johnny Brown.
Well, we have two named Johnny, so that's why I use Johnny Scott.
Okay. 'Cause I see your name pop up in both ways, Johnny Brown and Scott Brown, depending on who's writing, I guess, referring to you. You were also charged with investigating this matter. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you were working with Albert Paxton or separately than Albert Paxton?
Actually, his supervisor.
You're working his supervisor. When did you get first notified about this incident?
Then the following Monday after, I believe it would be the 13th. I didn't respond to the scene because of some inclement weather, and we had suffered some damage as a result of it, so they spared me and another detective from having to get the call out. So I first learned of the Ronald Greene incident on Monday the 13th.
Okay. And were you aware of the Clary video? I'm going to cut to the chase. When did you first become aware of the Clary video?
That morning, during briefing.
Okay, so you knew the Clary video existed even though...
No, I didn't know it existed. I knew who had what and what was being reported to me by, at the time, my lieutenant, who was Gary Beasley. He's the one that offered the initial briefing of what had occurred, and they caught me up to speed. And part of that briefing included a section of what we got from Lieutenant Clary.
And were you aware of a body cam video at that time?
No, I did. I was told he didn't have one.
So you were told by, not from Albert Paxton, from somebody else that he did not.
I was told by Lieutenant Gary Beasley, who was my direct supervisor at the time, and the case agent was Investigator Jerry Spencer. Those are the two that came to me, and we talked about the case that morning, and that was what they represented to me, was that Lieutenant Clary had a dash cam, which basically showed his drive up there, and therefore didn't really have any relevant information, but we had that, but that he did not have any body cam.
And after, so some time goes by, when are you first made aware that there's another video, that the Clary video exists?
I didn't until Albert Paxton told me after a conversation he had with Scott Davis, so it was whatever time that was on his timeline.
Okay, so that's when you first become aware of the Clary video.
Yes, sir.
Did you have any conversations with anybody about how to handle this new evidence that's come to light?
Well, the first thing that popped in my mind is I wanted to make sure that Mr. Belton, who was the state prosecutor, and the FBI had a copy of it. I assumed because, I was aggravated that I didn't have it, but I also knew that we were under subpoena to make sure that the Department of Justice had copies of all the files, which we had provided our file, but just minus the video. So obviously I didn't want them thinking that we were trying to short them. And then I contacted Mr. Belton personally and asked him about the Clary video.
Was he aware of the Clary video when you contacted him?
No, he did not know, and told me that he was not aware the Clary video existed and that he had never seen it.
Okay. And do you know what time frame this was when you contacted Mr. Belton?
It was the day, forgive me, I don't have Albert's timeline, but he does a great job of specifying the exact time it is. So if you have access to that, then you should have a date there.
So that's accurate to your recollection. Sure. Do you, at this point, what are your concerns at this point? I guess did you voice your concerns to anybody else in the state police about about finding out about a video that's evidence after the fact?
Yes, sir.
And who'd you voice those concerns to?
Voiced it to the lieutenant colonel at the time, was Colonel Van Buren.
Okay. And what was the response from Colonel Van Buren?
Well, he wanted a meeting, and that's the meeting that Sergeant Paxton referred to, where he, myself, Captain Robert Loomer, Bo Loomis, met with Colonels Cameron, Lieutenant Colonel Cameron, and Lieutenant Colonel Van Buren to discuss the case.
And what was the result of that meeting?
First, we viewed the video, and after we reviewed the new evidence, I I made a suggestion to them of how I'd like for the thing to proceed, because Albert had already provided me the information, which in my opinion was supported by everyone else that worked for him. It wasn't just one detective. I had multiple detectives out there, and they all reported to me the same thing, that John Clary didn't have video. So to me, there was a violation there. And I was concerned that this video had never been provided to us. And also, at the time that I discovered the video, by now I had access to Axon. I didn't have it then, but now I did, and I logged in and actually looked at the audit trail. And I realized that this video was discovered within days and I was just so disappointed that no one had ever reached out to us and said, hey, we got evidence. I mean, we had provided the case file. Apparently nobody read the case file. Nobody looked into the attachments to see we didn't have it. And
Do you think that's odd that nobody looked at the attachments to see if you had everything?
The entire case file, we place them, they're digital now, and we make them digital so we can, share them with the different people that are going to want them. So you actually have to go into the attachments, but Albert would have listed in his case report the attachment number, allowing someone to be able to go in and see what videos we had and what they didn't. And I've obviously heard testimony of people referring to the Clary video was mentioned in Albert's original report. Yeah, it was a dash cam video, which just showed a drive up to the scene and doesn't show anything. So that's the video that was being referenced.
So were you concerned about the statement that John Clary gave to Albert Paxton that he recorded at like around 4 o'clock in the morning? Was that statement concerning to you that it did not make any mention of a struggle?
Yes, I was concerned because it wasn't consistent with what's on the video. Now that we have his video, I can see what I see going on, and then I listen to what he says, and to me it's not consistent.
Okay. Did you talk to Colonel Reeves at any point about the videos? Did you have any conversations with Colonel Reeves during this process? Let me back up that way.
Yes, sir.
When did you talk to Colonel Reeves?
The initial time that I spoke to Kevin was in May, a couple weeks after the incident itself, and we had went and played in a golf tournament, and I finally had an opportunity to talk about it on the way home, and I brought it up in the context that I brought it up, and I heard the former colonel's testimony the other day, and a lot of what he said is accurate as far as the content of what it says, but yet the reason I brought it up was I'd already knew that my superiors didn't want to do anything. So I was sort of looking for that opportunity to go talk to my friend and say, hey, guy, look, I'm telling you, this is some serious business, and we need to get out in front of this. And if we don't get out in front of this, we don't have to sit in front of the media and explain why we didn't do it, but you are. So that was why I was trying my best to say, look, man, this is serious. This is some serious stuff that we need to deal with it. And he went right to the part about, well, we're not going to arrest troopers for turning their cameras off. And I just knew that.
Had Colonel Reeves seen the Clary video at this point?
No, I didn't have the Clary video at this point. I didn't know it existed.
Okay, this was before that.
Yes, sir. This was within just a couple of weeks after the actual incident in May. This was May of 2019 when I had this first conversation.
So this is a concern about them turning their body camera off, not the existence of a video that was misled about.
This is all I have is the DeMoss video to go on, and then the 2 short videos, which, I heard the colonel reference the 3 videos that they watched just a few weeks. Well, that's the 3. There was only one relevant video, and that came from Trooper DeMoss, who had the lengthy video that we relied on to get all of our views of the scene. We didn't have Lieutenant Clary's body cam, which obviously provided a totally different view that we didn't have access to. And then we had 2 short versions of Chris Hollingsworth. We had other videos there, which included Clary's drive up, but his drive up was just a drive up. If you want to watch somebody listening to music on your way up there, that's all you're going to get from it. So it was classified as nothing was relevant on that video because it wasn't. It didn't show the scene or anything.
Did you think Colonel Reeves took your concern seriously at that time?
Yes, I did. I think Kevin trusted my opinion. Okay. But I think he also trusted the opinion of others. And I blame myself for not maybe pushing a little bit further.
When you find out there's another video, did you bring that information to Colonel Reeves saying, hey, we have another video that shows more stuff? Did you have that?
I don't think I actually brought that to his attention. They weren't here. They were gone when I found that video.
Who was gone?
The administration had changed, I believe, by the time Lieutenant Clary's video surfaced.
So now it's Colonel Davis is now in charge of state
Yes.
police by the time you're aware of it?
Yes, sir.
Did you have any conversations with Colonel Davis about the new video?
No, sir.
And you said you were frustrated and you were finding an opportunity to talk to Colonel Reeves because your superiors were not taking it seriously. Who are you referring to with your superiors?
Well, I'm not going to say they weren't taking it serious. They just weren't taking what I considered to be the advice that I was giving, which was we need to get out in front of this. I felt like criminal charges need to be filed. I felt like, similar to Scott, is that there was a wide range of charges that could be considered. And I felt like it was my job as a supervisor to make sure that my command staff knew the potential that was there. And unfortunately, no one else shared that opinion.
And who are the supervisors we're talking about this time?
The initial supervisors was Major Bob Brown and Captain John Peters and Lieutenant Gary Beasley, along with, at a later point, Captain Jason Turner.
And were you instructed not to proceed, or did you feel like somebody was insinuating you shouldn't proceed with an investigation?
No one ever told me not to do anything.
Did you ever get the sense that you shouldn't look further into things?
Oh, absolutely.
And who was giving you that impression, or was it a general sense?
Well, as you heard in Sergeant Paxton's testimony, a few days into the investigation, we started gathering facts now because we were able to start gathering data from the videos that we had collected. And the investigator Spencer would come to me every time he'd find something that was complicated. He would come to me and have me look at it. And to be honest with you, the first video that came to my attention was the one that got leaked out where he calls his buddy up and starts bragging about what went on at the scene. So I already know just that video in itself. If I knew nothing else, I knew we had a public relations nightmare just with that one video and the fact that this video is going to be played at some point to the world. And so it sort of puts you on the defense. Now let's go back. This guy's bragging about what happened. Let's go dig and find out what did he do. And that's basically the way the investigation took its course. They went back, and now we started going frame by frame with these other videos, and obviously we've seen the what we considered to be excessive force at the window, the shooting of the taser. We've got what can be considered excessive force, hitting somebody in the head with what we believe was a flashlight. Now at the time, we didn't have anything but DeMoss's video of what I'm going to call phase 2, because they get Greene finally handcuffed. And then they walk away from Mr. Greene. And you can obviously hear Mr. Greene, but I looked at the position of Mr. Greene and where he was lying on the scene and things of that nature. So when you get the second video and you see a re-engagement, so to speak, that takes place, number one, I don't see any justification in that re-engagement. And when I hear people say, well, Mr. Greene was trying to get up, Mr. Greene was trying to do this, well, he's still laying in the same place you left him before. He's still there. He hasn't rolled over. He hasn't done anything. And on top of that, we now include a set of leg shackles. So now he's handcuffed behind his back and he has shackles on. But it seemed like the force continued. Well, it did continue. And I couldn't see any justification there.
Did anybody ask you to not provide evidence in this case? Or to conceal evidence?
Yes, sir.
Did you express that incident to Colonel Reeves?
Yes, sir.
So Colonel Reeves was aware that you were asked to not provide evidence?
Yes, sir.
When did you talk to Colonel Reeves next after May?
I can't give you the exact date. I know it's around the time my brother-in-law had passed away, and he actually came by. He doesn't live far from where I live, so he came by to visit, and that would have probably been September. It was shortly before he retired. And I recall having another conversation with him there, and I was encouraging him at that point that we need to address some of the issues that are we're being blasted. We got people that are, coming here to protest and things of that nature, and they're all saying that he died because we said he died in a car crash. Well, I knew that he didn't die in a car crash, and our report doesn't reflect that he died in a car crash. So it's like, look, everybody's saying this. We need to do, in my opinion, we need to do something to refute this.
And I know I'm getting very close to an investigation, so I want to be very careful, and I'm going to caution the members, be careful. Were other people around when you were asked to conceal evidence in this case?
Yes, sir.
Was this in a meeting?
Yes, sir. It's the meeting that Albert Paxton referred to.
Okay.
We didn't, by the way.
No, I understand. I'm glad you asked that. I'm glad you added that as well. I'm going to turn it over to some other people for questions. And I'm going to turn to Representative Backlaus first. And remember, I put y'all back on the 6-minute rule. I like 6.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going back, again, I just want to touch on this. It looks like you didn't say it, but you saw the Clary videos on April 12th, according to logs, which would be 11 months after the incident.
Yes, sir. And just listening to the prior testimony, the dates that they give would be, because that's the two that actually provided me that information.
Got it. And it looks like in between or somewhere prior to that, the only people who, I'm just looking at one example, but looks like Scott Davis had viewed everything on the 15th. It also looks like not long before you viewed it in April of 21. I'm sorry, it's longer than I thought. Sergeant Ducote had viewed those videos in September of 20, and you finally saw them April 12th, 21.
Yes, sir. As I recall, looking at that log, it was apparent to me that Internal Affairs had viewed it. There was multiple people that had looked at the video from the log, as I recall, and which would have been consistent because of the Internal Affairs investigation. It was apparent they used that video.
But again, the video, I guess you're saying that Kevin Ducote is Internal Affairs? I don't know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The names that I seen all were linked to Internal Affairs.
But even his viewing of those videos, the Ducote video, the Clary videos were, I don't know, a year and a half after the incident.
As I understand, that's the videos that they used in the initial Internal Affairs investigation.
But even absent that, you guys, absent the Clary videos, you guys had great concern just based on what you saw from the other,
yes, sir.
The videos that were available to you.
Yes, sir.
And going back to the meeting where you said that you were, I think the term used by the chair was concealed evidence. Can you just kind of describe that meeting?
Yes, sir.
A little bit. Who's? I know you said it's the same, but I'd like to have on record who was present, what you were told in your words, rather than just doing a ditto for the previous witness.
Okay. I heard Sergeant Paxton refer to the fact that they called the meeting. That was incorrect. I called that meeting. I called that meeting because of the issues that had surfaced in the videos that we had.
And again, can you date this meeting for me?
That would have been, again, I won't have to ask you to refer to Mr. Paxton's timeline, but it was maybe 16th or something along those lines. It was just
2019.
Yes, sir, 2019. Okay. Absolutely.
Got it. Okay, please.
Those present were Major Bob Brown, Captain John Peters, Lieutenant Gary Beasley, and then my detectives. And I can't recall all who were in the room, but I know Albert Paxton was in the room, and we were upstairs. We have an upstairs deal so all of us wouldn't fit in my office, and that's where we were at. So some may have been standing in the hall. But Albert Paxton and Investigator Spencer, I had two more detectives that worked there at the time. They were Mark Taylor, who no longer works there, and Caleb Reeves.
Okay, and characterize the meeting for me, please.
Okay, the meeting that I called was to go over these, the fact that we had some complications that had come up, and I wanted to share those with the with my rank and let them know what we'd found, and then I guess suggest what I considered to be what we need to do next. A game plan. Try to gather a game plan together to combat what we obviously knew was going to be a huge public relations nightmare.
Okay, and who in this group was the highest? Who's the ranking officer in the room?
Major Brown.
And if you would, what was anybody? But I guess I'm asked for Major Brown's comments relative to your presentation, and can you kind of give me as accurately as you can with the passage of time what the remarks might have been or instruction to you may have been?
Yes, sir. Well, I went over a wide range of charges that I suspected could be applied.
Would you review that? Tell us what they are.
Okay, they ranged everything from obstruction of justice to negligent homicide was the crime that I ended with. And there were several in between, which could include malfeasance in office and then the excessive force charges, which could be aggravated battery all the way down to simple battery charges.
Okay, and please continue the what the response.
And again, I wasn't saying this is what we need to do. This was what I was suggesting to them that could be available. If the DA's office or someone looks at that, I wouldn't be surprised if they come back with any of this or all of it.
I guess the characterization was we need to look at this case to determine if there's probable cause on these particular charges. These are the things I think we should review for.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It was.
You weren't saying it was time to arrest them. You were saying this is what we need to look at.
This is what we face. This
Right.
is what we face, and recognize that in my opinion, our options were limited. We certainly had criminal activity there, and because of the huge, what I considered to be was going to be a public relations nightmare, that the only way we would maintain credibility and be able to maintain control of it is get out in front of it. And that's what I suggested that we do, which was to actually promote filing criminal charges against who I felt was the person who initiated all of this, was Chris Hollingsworth. And in doing so, you would work with the district attorney's office for that same fact, not just necessarily to take care of this, but to preserve the integrity of our department.
Got it. And tell me what ultimately happened and why.
Well, they disagreed with that. They did not want to file criminal charges against.
Okay, was their opinion that was not the best course of action? Was that done after a thorough review of the evidence, or was the evidence not presented to them? Did they want to see the evidence, or did they just want to dismiss it
we
without?
definitely talked about what the evidence was. We talked about who had evidence, and I've heard it mentioned. Obviously, we've talked about Lieutenant Clary. We've talked about Lieutenant Clary's, what information he had and what information he didn't have. That was part of it, but it wasn't just a focus on Lieutenant Clary's body cam, the fact that he didn't have it. We also informed them that we didn't have a full body cam from Corey York, that he had turned his body cam off. We also informed them that Sergeant Floyd McElroy arrived on scene, but yet he turned his body camera off. So it wasn't just a focus on just one individual, it was a focus on the entire scene, who had what. So they were aware of what evidence we had and what evidence we didn't have.
And can you be any more specific about, I don't want to say a quote, but as close as you can to a quote, the nature, your instructions?
Yes, sir. If you're referring to what would eventually be the threat that Albert related to a while ago, we debated all these charges, and the debates almost got silly at some time, because, I'm saying, well, wait a second, why would, it starts with the turning of the cameras off. Well, he just didn't turn his camera off. He turned his camera off the moment he heard he was fixing to be in a pursuit. So as he's reaching to turn his blue lights on, he reaches and grabs his camera and pulls it down. At the moment he hears, I'm fixing to be involved in a pursuit. That's what's troubling. It's not that you shouldn't turn your cameras off, but here you know you're fixing to be involved in a pursuit, and the first thing you do is reach and pull your dash cam down. But unfortunately for him, he recorded himself pulling his dash cam down.
Right.
And then shortly into the pursuit.
If you would, just a moment, Mr. Chair, I don't want to cut him off, but I know I'm past my time
That's your
limit.
time.
So if we will just, I will relinquish the microphone, but I'd like to see the witness continue to describe the
Yeah,
meeting.
absolutely. Keep going.
Okay. Well, so we describe in that event, and I brought up the point that, in my opinion, this could be obstruction of justice. Not necessarily just for turning your cameras off. It's what you do after you turn your camera off. It's why did you turn your camera off? Are you covering up criminal activity? Or are you covering up whatever? Now, if an officer has a justifiable reason for turning his cameras off, I can get it. But what we had to do is we just simply had to fast forward and see, well, what did he do? We know that in other words, the debate led, what legitimate reason would he have for turning his cameras off at that moment? What? Because he's clear violation of policy, so he's intended, I'm going to violate policy, and the world's going to know I'm going to violate policy, but I don't care. Now, a lot of people question me saying, Scott, there's no way you could have known, or he could have known what he was going to do. And the only response I could give is I said, yes, you're right. I didn't know he didn't know what he was going to do, but he sure didn't want me to see it. That's what he did. And that's why he turned his cameras off, is because he didn't, and we all know, he didn't want us to see what he was going to do next. So as investigators, we just fast forwarded to see what was the next thing he did. Well, the next thing he did was race to the car with a taser and tase him. So my argument was surrounding just not turning the cameras off is concerning obstruction of justice. Just wasn't the fact you turn the cameras off. You turn your cameras off actually to cover up for what I consider to be an excessive force. So there's my argument. Well, they didn't buy that, and they pushed back. They argued against that, and one of the arguments was there's no way that he could have known what he was going to do. And I agree. There's no way he could have known. But what he did know is he didn't want us to look at it or see it. And as we continued to push, they continued to push back on that. My debate in the opposite direction was the cameras, the videos.
And I want to ask you, did you recommend anybody be terminated as a result of all this?
No, I recommend they be arrested.
Arrested.
Yeah.
And they were not arrested. In your career, have you ever recommended somebody be arrested and they not be arrested?
I was asked that in the last meeting, and I think my answer was no, and I can't recall ever.
Gotcha.
Ever.
This is the only one that stands out in your memory.
It's the only one that I can recall ever.
Thank you. Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to be brief. I just got 3 or 4 questions for you. It's going to be real quick. No, I mean it this time. So let me ask you this. To the extent, if you can say, who specifically asked you to conceal evidence?
John Peters.
John Peters. Okay. And I know John Peters is the same one that said to Paxton that if you guys do something, there's going to be basically some friction between Troop F and Bureau of Investigations.
Yes, sir.
All right. So here's the thing that's gotten kind of puzzled me for a while, and I wanted to ask this earlier, but you're the perfect person to ask this. I just think there's when you read the report, there's a certain amount of hubris that's in that. I mean, why would you misrepresent statements in a report when you know that there's video that exists, unless you don't think that the video is ever going to be used or ever going to be seen?
That's the conclusion I would draw.
And to me that lines up with what Peters said. I guess what Paxton said, that Peters said that they don't always send the video over to the DAs or to the other authorities. So it makes sense to me that you would go out and do these things because you could do it with impunity because somebody's got your back where it would never be revealed or discovered. Is that a reasonable conclusion?
Yes, sir.
To be honest with you, I think that's about it.
That's great.
Very quick.
Representative Landry, I'm not going to give you a chance to expound.
I just have one basic question. We spent most of the day going over, who knew what and when and all this, but as a basic question, and I'm sorry, how many years were you a trooper?
I was a
Or in
trooper
the state police?
from 2003. I've been in law enforcement since 1987.
Okay. Why did they react like this? After Ronald Greene was stopped and they pulled over, and I mean, there were so many different differing actions by different people, but as a general why for someone who's never been in law enforcement, why did this happen in your opinion?
Gotcha.
I can't envision why it happened. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't just two people that I've mentioned. I'm gonna make it perfectly clear. Nobody in my chain of command wanted anything done. Okay. And as a matter of fact, there was only one other person I can recall talking to until we eventually talked to Scott Davis that agreed with me. And to this day, there's still a lot of people who disagree with me, who are mad that I'm right now talking to you or telling you any of this stuff. Don't get me wrong. Don't. Okay. I don't know why. I don't know why. But, I can't help but think, had I given in and not done it, that I'd be in jail right now. Because you just heard testimony from Scott Davis. He was already on to them. And I didn't even know Scott Davis existed. And we didn't. But I just wonder, had these friends of mine come to my rescue, had we not provided the videos, which we were told not to do, to Mr. Belton? And I know what the answer is. I'm satisfied with what we did. My guys aren't to blame for this. The reason I'm here is to defend my detectives. It wasn't just Albert Paxton who was a detective. I had 4 detectives out there that morning. Well, one of them was a lieutenant. He wouldn't work for me. I worked for him. It wasn't just one person that came back and reported to me that John Clary didn't have body cam video. It was all of them. It wasn't just those 4 that knew that we openly discussed this case in my office with everyone. We openly talked about the evidence we had and the evidence that we didn't have. We discussed it with all of them, and I'm including every name that you've heard here. So when this video did surface, these people knew we didn't have that video. Now, I get it. Yeah, they can't come here and admit to that. They go to prison. It's that simple. But that's where we're at, okay? But don't blame my detectives. My detectives did what they thought they were supposed to be doing, which they had done a countless number of times. They went out there and they asked for they got with the supervisor and said, give me all the video. Shame on you if we can't trust you, and that's it. And that's what happened. I don't know why they didn't want to move forward with that. Maybe they did recognize this as being something significant. That's the answer that I have for you. I don't know, and I'm sorry for getting long-winded.
No, I appreciate the honesty. And the same question, the police who were there on the ground physically with Ronald Greene, why did they act in the way that they did?
I don't know.
Thank you.
I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Landry. I want to ask you real quick. Did you reference a McElroy video?
Yes, sir. No, there's not a McElroy video, but he was someone else that arrived on the scene. He was a supervisor who arrived on the scene, and he didn't have video. And the reason I mentioned that is it wasn't, I don't want people thinking we singled out John Clary just to say, okay, John had this and John didn't. We went through all the people that had evidence to provide to us and those who didn't, including the Union Parish deputies that were on the scene. We checked those out, including the Monroe police officers that may have been involved We checked with those to see did they have video cameras. The
So
Western Police-
there's no McElroy video, just to be clear.
Oh no, there's none.
That's to make sure we don't make. I'm trying to
Absolutely,
make
I
sure we collect.
apologize.
No, it's okay. I'm double checking everything. And when you told Reeves about that you were asked to not provide evidence, what was his reaction?
It wasn't a reaction.
Okay. Did he say anything to you, or did he?
He was upset that his son was in the room.
Okay. Representative Villio and then Representative Marcel, and I think we're done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question. The huge public relations nightmare that you talked about included for the governor in a re-election campaign, did it not?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you if I speculated that, absolutely I did, but I don't have any evidence to it.
I understand. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you, Representative Villio. Representative Marcel.
Actually, I was going to ask you about you kept referring to it as a public relations nightmare for the department, is what you were talking about?
By not doing the right thing.
By
Absolutely.
not doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
Right? Although I agree it would have been a public relations nightmare, more importantly, we need to tell the truth about incidents, and somebody's child died in this incident, and they need the answers. Now, you said it was, because I may have been walking out. Who asked you to bury evidence? Peters? Was it Peters that you
Yes,
said?
ma'am.
Is he still with state police?
No, ma'am.
He's not there. So he retired also.
I believe he retired. Yes, ma'am.
He's retired. Seems like a number of the people that we've been asking about have gone on off into the sunset, and we have to pay their retirement. That's what it seems like. But let me ask you another question. If it's found that Peters or anyone else, because you said it's enough people that were on the ground that didn't tell the truth or turned their body cameras off, other than Clary, if that information is brought forward, do you believe that they still should be prosecuted?
All that information has been brought forward.
Do you believe that they should
Absolutely.
all
Absolutely.
be prosecuted?
Yes.
And just for clarity, I asked earlier about the use of force team, and I think I'm being corrected that the use of force team has not gone away, but it's called something else. Is it two different units? Is it two
I think
different
they
units?
call it a force investigation unit now.
Force investigation unit. So we do have force investigative units still there, correct?
Yes, ma'am. It was just recently created.
All right. I just wanted to clear that up because of the officer who I asked a question to earlier, and I'm being told that it's two different things. I want to thank you for your honesty as well.
Thank you.
It's much needed, especially in this incident. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Marcel. That concludes all the questions we have for you. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.